dance talk for the month of November. And so we have had a brief hiatus, and Oliver is no longer with us. He has moved on to an industry position, but we will be continuing to have our dance talk series. And we're kicking it off with this great talk with my former PhD student, Miao Miao Wen, who is now a data scientist at Coursera. And so she's just going to say a couple of words about herself, and then we'll transition right into her talk. I think that it will be a really big treat. So would you like to just say a few words, Wen?
Yeah, well, I just graduated from Caroline's group this, when did I graduate actually? Like September.
I guess it was like a month ago.
Yeah. So I just started my job here at Coursera for a week. So this talk will be mostly about my work, which I did with Caroline in CMU.
Yeah, it should be a real treat. Wen did really groundbreaking work in enabling team-based learning in MOOCs. It's something that we wanted to see be made more successful for a really long time, and I think that she had the insight that really made it possible and led to extremely successful results, and that's what she'll be talking about today. So I think I'll just turn it over then to Wen. So why don't you go ahead and start sharing your screen and.
Okay, thank you. Let's see, desktop. And so can you see my screen?
Yes, perfect.
Okay, great. Okay, hi everyone. Thank you for coming to my talk. This talk will be about my work, my thesis work. So the title is Investigating Virtual Teams in Massive Open Online Courses, Deliberation-Based Team Formation and Support. So as most of you know, like since MOOCs has been introduced several years ago, it has attracted millions of learners online. But social isolation has been the norm in current generation of MOOCs. And many researchers believe that social isolation is one of the reasons of the high dropout rate in MOOCs. And a recent work shows that a quarter of learners expressed an intention to meet new people in a MOOC, which demonstrates students' social learning needs in MOOCs. And in this thesis, we are going to focus on one type of social learning, which is team-based learning. And team-based learning provides students with a unique opportunity to accomplish a course project together, so that students have the opportunity to interact with each other and collaborate with each other. And the goal of the thesis is to design and develop automated support for effective team-based learnings in MOOCs. I think there are several challenges for supporting successful team-based learning in MOOCs. The first one is how to form teams in MOOCs. So there has been several platforms, MOOC platforms, that tries to offer team-based learning as an option in MOOCs. And in our previous work, we have seen that self-selection-based team formation, like in edX, in Novo Ed MOOCs, were not very successful. Many of the teams did not have much activity from the very beginning. And another previous work shows that if we form teams in MOOCs solely based on demographics, it's not going to be significantly better than like randomly assigned teams. Another challenge is how to support teams that are in action. So potentially there can be large number of teams in MOOCs, and students come from different backgrounds and have different perspectives, which makes supporting teams difficult and challenging. So in this thesis, like in this talk, I'm going to present a series of studies. In study 1, it will be a corpus analysis about Novo Ed MOOCs. Which Novo Ed is a small like team-based MOOC platform. And from there, we see which factors are correlated with student commitment and team performance. And based on the observations in Novo Ed MOOCs, we formed our hypothesis of this thesis. And in particularly, we utilize a learning science concept of transactivity. Here, transactivity means that students can build on previously presented ideas and offer more reasoning. So we use this idea because it has both cognitive and social indications, and I will talk about that more later. And after we formed the hypothesis, we did 3 control studies in Amazon Mechanical Turk, where we test out our team formation and support paradigm. And after that, we did deployment studies in real MOOCs to see whether this our team formation paradigm and work in real MOOCs. And I will start from study 1, which is a corporate study in novel ed MOOCs. So here, what we mostly look at is team collaboration products. And we see that students or teams' activity level in these novel ed MOOCs is correlated with the team collaboration product. For example, like how many blogs the team have had and how many team members the team had. A second factor that we see that was correlated with the team collaboration product is communication language the teams used during their collaboration. For example, like how many, how polite they are, like how many cognitive words they use during their collaboration. So these all show their style of communication during collaboration. And a third factor we see is the leadership behavior. So in novel ed MOOCs, the student who start the team will automatically become the team leader, and his or her behavior will be correlated with the team collaboration product. For example, the early decisions they made, and the team leader's block count in the team space. So from study 1, we have seen that the activity level of the students in the teams and also the language use in the teams are correlated with this team collaboration product. And we also see that leadership behaviors, which is one type of the collaboration communication support, is correlated with the team's activity level and team language use. And so from our observations in study 1, we formed our hypothesis in this thesis. First, we actually see a lot of problems associated with team formation in these novel ed MOOCs. First, we see that in novel ed MOOCs, students were grouped since the very beginning of the course. So usually in week 1 or 2, after the students just enrolled in the course, they will start grouping. And there are many teams did not have any activity at all, which shows there are some problem with associated with team formation itself. And we also see that once the teams are formed, students mostly communicate only with their team members, and there are very little activity in the course forum. So we think there are some problems with the team formation timing. So in our team formation paradigm, we won't form team from the very beginning. We want to form teams late instead of forming very early teams. Also in novel ed MOOCs, team formation is based on self-selection. And we see that more than half of the teams did not submit their final team project. So we think there might be some problem associated with team formation criteria. So we're going to do team formation based on students' transactive discussion, which I will talk more later. So our hypothesis, there are 2 team formation hypotheses. The first is that we want to form a late team, and we want to do late team formation with exposure to large community discussions, and we think that can lead to more successful team collaborations. Basically, we want to form teams late instead of forming teams in the beginning of the course, so that students can have the opportunity to interact with the entire course community before joining small teams. And the second team formation hypothesis is that we want to group students with other students with whom they've demonstrated successful team process. So in our case, we will focus on students who have transactively discussed with each other, and we will group those people together so that instead of doing the self-selection team formation. So transactivity is where students can elaborate, build upon, question, or argue against each other during collaboration or discussion. So so I'll give an example here. For example, if one student said, "I recommend nuclear energy for this city since it's very efficient," a transactive reply can be nuclear energy as it is efficient. So here, this sentence shows that the students is building upon the previously presented idea. It is not sustainable. Also think of the disaster probabilities. So this sentence shows that the students is offering more reasoning. So this will count as a transactive contribution. And a non-transactive reply can be, "I agree that nuclear power would be the best solution." So here you can see that the student did not offer more reasoning. And transactivity is a framework for analysis of group knowledge building. The similar concept of student building on each other and providing more reasoning has been called many names. For example, it has also been called intersubjective meaning making, productive agency, argumentative knowledge construction, and or idea co-construction. So they are basically referring to a very similar concept. And transactivity, we utilize this because of two reasons. From a social perspective, transactivity shows that there is good social dynamics in the groups where a student can respect each other's perspective because it shows that students are building on each other. And from a cognitive perspective, transactivity has shown to be correlated with students' increased learning because it provides opportunity for cognitive conflict to be triggered during discussion, because students are building on each other, and offering more reasoning, building on the reasoning this previous student had just provided. And it also results in collaborative knowledge integration because the optimal learning between students occurs when students both respect their own ideas and also those of the others. This is highlighted in a transactive discussion because students are both presenting their own idea and also building on the previous ideas of the others. And our hypothesis is that we will form teams based on students' transactive discussions. And we hypothesize that teams that have more transactive discussion will have better collaboration products. And our second hypothesis is about how to support teams. And we hypothesize that a conversational agent can further increase the team's transactive discussion during teamwork. And this, we hypothesize that this can lead to further improvement in team performance. So this is how current team-based MOOCs works. So they will start from self-selection based team formation, and then they will start collaboration in small teams. And in our proposed team formation and support paradigm, students will start from individual work. So they won't be grouped into small teams from the very beginning. And then they will have the chance to do community deliberation, where they will discuss with the entire course community. And then we will form teams with transactive evidence that was extracted from their community deliberation. And then they will go to they will start working and collaborating in their small teams, and we will support them with transactive-based collaboration support, which is a conversational agent. So, so after our hypothesis formation, I will talk more about our studies that we done in Amazon Mechanical Turk, where we did very controlled studies to see the to test the internal validity of our team formation and support hypothesis. So to do this experiment in Amazon Mechanical Turk, we will have to design a team collaboration task for the Turkers. So here are there's several requirements. The first one is we want to do jigsaw grouping, where each Turker has a unique piece of knowledge and perspective, because jigsaw grouping has long been shown to promote good team process. So we'll use this as a strong baseline of our team formation. And also the Turkers will need to integrate their knowledge to finish their task. This will require the Turkers to talk with each other instead of working alone. If they just work by themselves, they will not be able to accomplish this task. And also the task should require discussion among team members. This is also one of the requirements so that the Turkers cannot accomplish the task by themselves. So here's our task, which is to design an energy proposal for a city. So each student in this team will learn about one type of energy and an associate perspective. We designed a constraint satisfaction proposal writing task, which is to choose an energy plan out of 4 for a city based on its requirements. So that we designed several energy plans, and no plan satisfy all the requirements, so that there is no obvious correct answer. The Turkers will need to discuss the trade-offs and come up with one choice of their team. So this will require the Turkers to have a lot of discussion to come to one conclusion of their team. So this is our crowdsourced experimental workflow. In preparation stage, the Turkers will start with reading to prepare them for the later tasks. So here, each Turker, in the step 1, each Turker will randomly assign to read an article about pros and cons of one type of energy source. So we designed like 4 common energy sources, which are coal, hydro, and nuclear, and wind. After students read the article about this one type of energy that was assigned to him, they will finish a small quiz and get some feedback on their quiz. So this is basically just to enable us to do jigsaw grouping, where each team member has knowledge about one type of energy. And in the second step, they will do an individual work. In the individual work, they will first read the task description, where we designed a simpler task than the team task, which is also to write an energy proposal for a city. We designed a few requirements here about the city's requirements for the energy. And then they will write an individual proposal recommending one type of energy for the city. So for example, this is one Turker recommending wind power as for the city A. In the third step, it will be the community deliberation, or the deliberation step, where we will automatically post their individual proposal to a forum, and then they can comment on each other and give each other feedback. And to encourage Turkers to discuss with each other transactively, we ask them to give each other at least 5 feedback replies. And we ask them, when they give your feedback, please elaborate, build upon, question, or argue against each other. So this is basically the definition of transactivity. And in the final step, it will be the team collaboration step. They will each Turker team will work on collaborate on an Etherpad. So an Etherpad is very similar to Google Doc. So the Turkers can edit the team proposal synchronously, and at the same time they can discuss with each other in the chat function on the right-hand side. So here, after they've done the task, we will objectively measure team performance by giving each team proposal a proposal score. So here, basically, we will count how many requirements they have considered for each energy type. For example, if they in the proposal they say wind farms may be inactive for the bird population, then we think they consider one requirement, which is to save the bird population. They've considered that for the wind energy, so this will give them add one score to their team proposal score. And then we will count how many comparisons they've made among the energies. For example, if they say it is much more expensive to build a hydro plant than it is to run a wind farm. Basically, they are comparing the cost of the hydro energy and the wind energy. We'll also count how many additional valid requirements they've considered for the energies. For example, if they say hydro plant also require a large body of water with a strong current. So this is not one of our requirements, but it's also valid. This will also add one to their proposal score. We will subtract the incorrect requirement statements they've made in their proposal. For example, if they say hydro does not affect animal life around it, so this is not right. So it will subtract one from their proposal score. Basically, this will give them each team proposal score. We'll use this as an objective measure of team performance. To measure their team communication discussion quality, we will count the length of their discussion and also how many transactive turns they've used during their collaboration in the Etherpad. So in our study 2, which is a control study we did in Amazon Mechanical Turk, we will first see whether timing has an effect on the process measures of activity level and also the reasoning or transactive language use during their team collaboration. So to test whether team formation timing has an effect on their team performance, we will. So here's our experimental workflow. So for the before deliberation condition, the students or the Turkers will move into their small group collaboration before community deliberation. Basically, they will have the deliberation in their small groups. And for the after deliberation condition, they will move into their small group collaboration after community deliberation. Basically, they will first have their community deliberation with around like 40 Turkers during the deliberation step, and then they will go to their small teams and start their collaboration. So this will answer our first research question, which is, will exposure to this large community deliberation lead to a more successful small group collaboration? To control for the count found that when the Turkers move into their small groups, we actually group the teams at the same time. So for both the conditions, the composition of the teams were decided after the preparation stage, but the Turkers won't know that. They will also move to the individual work. So the only difference of these two conditions is when they actually start to work in their small teams, which were decided actually in the same time. So this is to control for the confounds. And in our experiment, we've collected 22 before deliberation groups and 20 after deliberation groups. And we control for the to control for the various effort level of the Turkers, we control for the pre-task proposal length. And after that, we still see that teams that are exposed to the community deliberation prior to their small group work demonstrated better team performance. So we see that the teams who start working in their small team after a big community deliberation had better team performance. We also see that after controlled for their pre-task proposal length, we see that teams that are exposed to their community deliberation prior to their small group work demonstrated better team performance, but we did not see a significant effect on the number of transactive discussion during collaboration. Basically, this tells us that they don't need more reasoning to achieve a better team performance. This indicates that they might have gotten those ideas to put to contribute to their team collaboration product from their big community deliberation. We think that it's because of that they have the opportunity to expose to more ideas and discussions. They had more ideas to contribute to their small group collaboration product. So that's why we see that's where the benefit of the big community deliberation is. So basically, this also says that the team formation timing does not have a significant influence on the team discussion during team collaboration. So in study 3, we will look at whether the transactivity evidence of their transactive discussion can inform a better team formation. So we will see whether the team formation and the composition of a team can have some effect on the activity level and also the discussion language, whether they have more transactive discussion during their team collaboration. Here, we will be comparing a random condition and a transactivity maximization condition. And we will decide the composition of the team. We do the jigsaw grouping after the community deliberation step. And the only difference between the two conditions is that for the random condition, the teams were assigned randomly, just satisfying the jigsaw condition. And for the transactivity maximization condition, the teams were formed so that the transactive discussion among team members were maximized. So this is to answer our research question where can evidence of this transactive discussion inform the information of more successful teams? So to do this, we will have to be able to automatically predict transactivity so that we can do this in real time, to have this workflow in real time. So we collected 426 reply posts in our pilot studies, and we hand annotate them with whether each reply post was transactive or not. We see that 17% of them were transactive. So by encouraging the takers to discuss with each other transactively, we actually see that many of them were transactive. And we trained a logistic regression model to predict whether each reply post is transactive or not. And on a tenfold cross-validation, we see that we can pretty accurately predict whether each post is transactive or not. We actually achieve an accuracy of 84%. And in our so to maximize like how many times members in a team transactively interact with each other, our team formation method actually tries to maximize the overall benefits of the teams. So we are not trying to just put students who have more transactivity together in a team. Basically, we want to maximize the total number of transactivity observed among team members, so that overall benefits are maximized. So to do this, we used a minimal cost network flow algorithm, which is a typical algorithm to use in this kind of constraint satisfaction problem. And in the next network flow part, we satisfy all the jigsaw constraints, and the minimal cost part of this algorithm will maximize the transactive communication that was observed among all the group members during community deliberation. Here are some results. In total, we collected 27 random groups and 27 groups that are formed based on our transactivity maximization algorithm. And we also control for the pre-task proposal length to control for the various effort level of the takers. We see that teams in the transactivity maximization condition did demonstrate better team performance on average. We also see that teams in this transactivity maximization condition had more transactive chats during team collaboration. Basically, this shows that we see that from study 2 and 3, we see that by forming teams after a community deliberation and also based on a transactivity maximization algorithm can increase the activity level in the team and also improve their communication during collaboration. So this, we also see a benefit, like improvement on their collaboration product in their small teams. In study 4, we will be looking at whether we can further increase the benefits of transactive discussion by supporting team communication with an agent, with a conversational agent, and whether that has an effect on their collaboration product. So the research question we'll be answering in study 4 is, can a conversational agent further improve collaboration discussion and collaboration product? Here we used a 2x2 experimental design. So for the team formation factor, we will compare between randomly formed teams and the transactivity maximized teams. And for the communication support, we'll compare between without support. Basically, it's like what we did in study 2 and 3, where teams just discuss in an Etherpad. And with support, here we will support the team with a conversational agent. And we used an adapted version of Bazaar, so which was designed in our group at CMU, and it's a conversational agent and has been successfully applied to many experiments. It basically facilitates group members to elaborate on their ideas and intensify the interaction between group members from different perspectives. So previously, the team just discussed in their Etherpad, and now we will support them with a Bazaar agent during their collaboration discussion. Here's how Bazaar works. So if it detects a student in the team mentioned a plan, it will decide whether this term contains reasoning or not. If it does not contain reasoning, it will try to ask the student to do more reasoning by saying, S1, like the student, let's say it's S1. Can you elaborate on the reason you chose plan 1 from your perspective, or would be the most economical? So this is basically try to encourage the student to do more reasoning. And if it already contain reasoning, it will try to intensify the discussions among the team members. For example, it can say, S1, would you recommend, you have proposed plan 1 and another student have proposed plan 2. Can you compare the two plans from your perspective? Basically, it will ask the students to compare the proposals they have proposed. And then if no one talks in the discussion, Bazaar will try to pick one person that has not been prompted before and ask him which of the plans seem to be the best from your perspective. And so here's how many teams we have collected in each condition. So in the 2x2, so we basically have 4 conditions. We collected 16 teams in each condition. And we actually see a significant, here are some results, and we actually see a significant effect of transactivity maximization team formation on team performance. So this is similar to what we've observed in study 3. And we also see that teams in the transactivity maximization condition with the collaboration support had better team performance. We see that we observed a significant interaction effect of this team formation method and the team collaboration support. And we also see that teams in the transactivity maximization condition talk more, like they have longer chats, and then they also contributed more transactivity. So this is also similar to what we've observed in study 3. And we also see that the number of the bazaar prompts, basically the contributions of the bazaar agent, has a marginal effect on the percentage of transactive turns during collaboration discussion. So we saw a marginal effect of this bazaar agent on the transactive discussions. We also see a significant interaction effect of the team formation method and the team collaboration support on the number of transactive turns during collaboration discussion. Basically, a combination of the team formation method and the team collaboration support have a significant effect on how many transactive turns during their team collaboration. So this shows that the collaboration support can have a significant effect on the communication language, team collaboration during team discussion during collaboration, and this has some further benefit on the team collaboration product. So after these control studies, we did 2 deployment studies in MOOCs, trying to see whether this team formation paradigm will work or not in a real MOOC. So there are 2 main motivations for our deployment studies. First, we want to test the external validity of our team formation paradigm, because like the previous 3 experiments were did in like controlled conditions in Amazon Mechanical Turk, we are obviously wondering whether that will work in a real MOOC or not. And then we want to understand what are other contextual factors that might influence the results. For example, we have, if we do the team formation in the real MOOC, we have constraints from the course and the instructors. So we want to see whether that will have an effect on the like the team performance. And we collaborated with Smithsonian on their MOOC called The Rise of Superheroes and Their Impact on Pop Culture. And before we actually do the deployment study, we had a lot of discussion with them, and we did an analysis on the data sets of 2 previous offerings of this superhero MOOC. So we also run a small pilot study with the previous students in this course, and to actually test whether the team formation will work or not in this course. And we did 2 studies. In study 5, we offered an optional team track in the 3rd offering of this superhero MOOC. And in study 6, we add a team-based MOOC to this superhero MOOC. So in study 5, so in this superhero MOOC, there were originally 2 tracks of studies. The first one is called creative track, where students in the creative track will design a superhero of themselves. And students in the historical track will write an analysis of an existing superhero. So this is how the students in these 2 tracks work. In week 1 and 2, students in the creative track will write and design the origin story and superpower of their superheroes. Well, for the historical students, they will write the vital statistics and the superpower of their the superheroes they chose to analyze. And in week 3 and 4, the creative students will design the archetypes and social issues of their superheroes. And then the historical track students will write down the analyze the social issue, archetype, and impact of their superhero they chose. Anyway, week 5 and 6, the creative students will design the story of their superhero, and the historical students will analyze the signature scenes of the superheroes they chose. And in our study 5, we added an optional team track to the two tracks, the creative track and the historical track. So we designed the activity for the students in the team track. In week 1 and 2, they will actually do the individual work, like what they will do in the historical or creative track. And then they will do the community deliberation in the course forum. We designed a discussion prompt, which is how to make the superhero more popular. And in week 3 and 4, we will form teams based on their community deliberation, like what we did in our control studies. And then they will start team collaboration, and we designed a knowledge integration task for these superhero teams. And we asked the superhero teams to design a superhero team among their team members, just like X-Men, so they can combine their superheroes into and write a superhero team story for their team. So starting from week 4, they will start working in their small teams. So here's how they will collaborate. They will collaborate in an edX team space, which is assigned to each team. So here's a screenshot of an edX team space. You can see that they can, so the functionality is very simple. You can view your team members, and you can post team blogs and comment to each other's. Here are some results we see in study 5. And because we start grouping students in week 3, we count how many students were active in week 3. We see that there are more than 1,000 students who are active in the creative and historical track. And there were only 16 students who joined our team track study, and we were only able to group 6 teams out of these students. And we also count how many students who submitted their final projects. We see there are 180 students from the other 2 tracks submitted their final projects, and there were 11 students in the team track submitted their final projects. And there were 82 students who got the certificates from the 2 original tracks. And there were 11 students, like all the students who submitted their final projects actually got their certificates. So from these numbers, basically we see that the dropout rate in the team track is not as high as in the other tracks. But we did see that there was very low participation when team collaboration is completely optional. So this makes sense because like in a MOOC, which is already optional, working in teams does require more coordination and effort. So if this is completely optional, there was not much participation. But looking at what students got from their team collaboration, so here's a super cat, a student designed when he was in the creative track. And after the cat was grouped into a superhero team, we see that the conflict scenes changed a lot. For example, when the student is designing the story by himself, the conflict looks very narrative, the conflict scene. And when the student comes into a small team, the conflict scene turns into a conversation between the team members. So this definitely makes the the MOOC experience more interactional. And also in the post-course survey, we asked whether the students will want to take the course again. And if you want to take the course again, what were the reasons? And 31% of the students chose said they want to take this course again to try out the team track. So in deployment study 6, a team-based MOOC of this MOOC, and we designed it as a follow-up course. We call it Rise of the Superheroes and the Heroes of the Huge Future. And we designed this as a mini MOOC, 3 week, only 3 weeks. So in week 1, because these are alumni, so they have already finished a superhero design or a superhero analysis. And we asked them to post their individual work and have a community deliberation like what we did in the Mechanical Turk studies. And in week 2, we will form teams, and then they will start working in their teams. This is very similar to what we did in study 5. They will also design a superhero team as their team task. But what's different is that this is required for them. So for all the students who enrolled in this follow-up MOOC, they have to join a team to finish. So here are the results. So in total, we have 208 students who posted their previous work that they've done in previous offering of this MOOC. And there are in total more than 200 threads posted by these students. And they've in total post more than 1,000 posts. And we hand annotated a sample of these posts and see 60% of them were transactive. And as a manipulation check, we see whether we can do the successfully apply the transactivity maximization to these teams in this MOOC. And we see that if we form team randomly, there were we will see around like 0.35 transactive posts among team members. But if we form teams using the maximization condition, we will see a big increasement in the number of transactive discussions among team members. Also, here we form teams, form verified teams and unverified teams, so that we make sure that the students in the team have similar motivation level. Verified teams are composed of verified students, basically students who paid for the certificates. So here are some results. We see there are in total 761 alumni who enrolled in this team-based MOOCs, and 100 of them paid for the certificates. And in total, we formed 52 teams out of the students who posted their previous superhero design or analysis. And then we see that all of the teams submitted their final projects, and 181 students in these teams finished the course. We also evaluated the quality of their collaboration by looking at their submitted team projects, which is the design of their superhero team. We gave each team project a finish status, basically counting how many components were missing from the projects. We also look at actually how many students participated in the project and whether all the superheroes interacted with each other in the story. So here are some results. Here we controlled for whether the team members were verified, basically whether they paid or not, and whether there was a historical track student in the team. And we saw a marginal effect of transactive discussion, like the number of transactive discussion during community deliberation on the finish status, the score we gave to each team project. And then we also see a significant effect of the number of transactive discussions on how many students who actually collaborated on the project. We saw a marginal effect of the number of transactive discussions on whether all the superheroes actually interacted in the story. we also so we think these results are correlational. So because we formed all the teams using our transactivity maximization algorithm, but these observations were consistent with our previous control studies in Amazon Mechanical Turk. So here are the conclusions. So in this thesis, I proposed a team formation method with the intention of application in team-based MOOCs. And we saw that teams that have experienced more transactive communications during a pre-teamwork communication community deliberation process had better team process and performance. We support team collaboration discussion through a revised version of the conversational agent Bazaar, and we see some further benefits on the team collaboration discussion and team products. So we test the external validity of our team formation paradigm in our deployment studies in real MOOC, and the correlational results were consistent with our findings in our control studies. We've built on a learning science concept of transactivity and designed and validated our team formation paradigm of this team-based MOOCs of the team-based learning in MOOCs. So this thesis includes practical design and app advice for MOOC practitioners, especially MOOC practitioners who are interested in doing team-based MOOCs. In future, we will want to explore the effect of team formation and support on students' learning gain. And we also want to explore how to better support team collaboration in future in more MOOC deployment studies. Okay, so that concludes my talk. Thank you.
Oh, that's great, Wen. Very, very interesting work. Of course, I'm a little bit biased. We have just a few minutes now for questions. Feel free to go ahead and post those to the chat if you are interested. I have a few here already. So let's see here. One question for you is, what advice would you offer to course developers who are thinking about the potential of incorporating team-based learning into their courses? Do you have any guidance to offer them in what questions they should be asking themselves to determine whether this is a good option for them or where it might fit into their class?
I actually have some kind of summaries I wrote in my thesis, so I should kind of extract them and post them online so that. But basically, from our studies, we have already seen that the team-based learning works best in MOOCs if they were required. So that's already so if it's totally optional, the participation might be low. And once you make it required, you have to design the course so that it will be it will support the team-based learning. Basically, you have to design the activities so that students can follow these activities in their during their participation in this team-based learning. For example, you will design an interesting team collaboration task, and then you will design the whole a series of activities. For example, like our team formation paradigm, you will want them to start with individual work, have something so that they are prepared for their collaboration, and then maybe have them do the community deliberation and do a good team formation. And then, so these are things we think are very important to ensure their experience in the team-based MOOCs.
Great. Okay. Here is another question. As Coursera and perhaps other platforms are moving to more of a self-paced paradigm, where it's even less the case that students are in lockstep with one another, because let's say they can do the 6 weeks of the course anytime within a 6-month period of time. How do you see this affecting the ability to incorporate team-based learning into MOOCs? And for whatever issues that you see, do you have any ideas how they might be able to be overcome?
You mean doing like team-based learning, like in the self-paced course?
Yeah. So if it's the case that, you know, the course is kind of rolling along for 6 months, and so there isn't a set start time really. People, you know, are encouraged to come anytime during that 6 months and start the course. Do you see still the potential to incorporate team-based learning? What might be the challenges, and how would you propose working towards a solution?
Yeah, I actually, for this, I don't have a good answer, because I feel like it will be very difficult to do team-based learning if the course is entirely self-paced. Because dropping out of the team, for example, if you join a team and then you drop out, and when you come back, the team may or may not be there. So it will be a kind of a bad experience for the student, and also for the other team members in the team. So I actually don't have a good idea about like how to do team-based learning if it's totally self-paced, where students can move in and out.
Do you think it would work to do something like what you did with the superheroes course, where let's say the course was self-paced for 6 months, but then after the 6 months was up, the alumni from that course were invited to a team component? Do you think that that could work? I mean, it's different in many ways from exactly what you did in your dissertation, but do you see that sort of carrying over to this case?
You mean like, for example, like after a period, like ask for the alumni to come in, still do do a course like simultaneously?
Yeah. So if the original course, so let's say there was a course and it was self-paced, so that students could take that course anytime during a 6-month period of time. Then by the end of the 6 months, there will have been a substantial number of people who completed the course, larger than you would expect if you only did one run of a course that was exactly 6 weeks. So at the end of the 6 months, let's say the alumni were all invited to sign up for a team component that's a follow-on to that course. Do you see that working with the self-paced paradigm?
Yeah, as long as like the students can commit and be committed to a team project at the same time, I feel like that's and that will be necessary for doing a team collaboration. Otherwise, whether you want to like so like before the team collaboration, whether you want to finish the course, like the MOOC at whatever time, that should be fine. For example, like in our case, like the follow-up MOOC was offered at the same time, like for all the alumni, but the alumni actually completed the course like in various times. So that should be fine.
So we have time for just one more question. So here's the final question. Based on your experience watching the students going through the team-based component for the Smithsonian Superheroes course, do you feel that MOOC students would benefit from any kind of preparation for teamwork before they take a team-based MOOC?
So like, for example, in our like study 5, we asked the students to finish their individual work by a certain deadline, and many students seem to not be able to do that. And that so these students may want to join teams, but because they haven't finished their work by the deadline, so they were not able to join teams basically. So it's not like a preparation is required for joining team-based MOOCs. So whatever way we can have for the students to first finish some individual work, I feel like that is very important for them to be able to like persist through the team-based component, because if you kind of don't have and show any effort level by the time of team formation, that basically indicates that you won't have a lot of effort later on. And that is, if you don't have a lot of, you don't want to put in a lot of effort for the team-based component, that is a pretty, that will make the experience bad for yourself and also for the team. So I feel like whatever way we can have to make sure that students did something, indicate that they have the effort to do the team collaboration is very valuable for prior to the team-based component. So whether or not that is like they finished the MOOC before or they have done their individual work by the deadline, both should work. Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Wen. This was very interesting. And thank you to all of our dance members who have joined us for this talk. I can see that there were several of you online here with us. And we will soon be sending out an announcement about the next talk in our Dance Talk series. So have a great day and a great month. And thank you again, Wen.
Thank you. Thank you, Caroline.